So we are back with our last community conversation. Don't tell everybody that came before, but I'm excited because I feel like I saved the best for last. Not only because of the context of the conversation, but because of the company that we are in. We have Harvey and Rony from Byas and Leon, and we have Paris from BK Yoga Club and
on Dekalb
coffee shop, cafe. And yeah, you all are near and dear to me, whether you know it or not, because I feel like we all come from this artistic space, and just being in community and in conversation and in interaction with community, we've kind of come to this intersection of our lives where we're going into business that is very heavily driven by one purpose or another. And you guys are, my cousin, you guys are up the street on Tompkins, you guys are right around the corner on Dekalb. So, yeah, it's been a really beautiful experience for myself, opening Remy 3 years ago as like the community space and an extension of SLAP and the collective, and you guys opening your shop within the similar time, and you guys opening your yoga studio in a similar time. I feel like it's a really integral moment in our history and in our lifetimes of a lot of us getting into business that was somewhat out of necessity, out of lack, and out of wanting to fill a void that we are all personally missing, that we know if we were able to fill and hold space in, it just offers a lot of opportunity, inspiration, and space as well for others. So I'm gonna just jump straight into you all. You guys are gonna be battling to answer, I guess.
No, you're already.
We're not. We're not.
But just want to offer space for you all to just speak to us a bit about your businesses, and just give a little insight on how those came to be and how we got here today.
I'll go first.
Nice.
So I'm co-owner of BK Yoga Club. We are a Black women-owned body positive yoga studio located in Bed-Stuy, and we also have a wellness-themed coffee shop called On Dekalb. And so the vision for BK Yoga Club grew out of just wanting to see myself reflected within the wellness space, and then my business partner Alicia Ferguson also had the desire to see ourselves reflected within wellness, and also a space where people can be creative, learn, and grow in community, because I have a background of like organizing shows and poetry shows, and so I wanted it to be a space that could also be creative, and we could thrive, we can grow and be inspired together.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Damn, that's
I'm kind of concise. Everything hitting.
What are we supposed to follow up? Like, we can't follow up with that.
Yes, you can.
How did you all come to be?
Oh, that's a deep history. First, Harvey moved to. You can say it.
Oh my God. We don't
My
gotta
block.
go that far.
Not that far.
Yeah, no.
We've been friends for 20 years, so like, there's a lot of this.
Yeah.
So since you were like 2.
Yeah.
Got it.
No, we're like what, 11?
We're older than that.
We're old men at this point.
Yeah.
But in terms of Byas and Leon, we conceptualized it maybe 11 years ago. We wanted to start making hand-cut, ethical produced clothing in Haiti. So we did that for a few years, and as we just expanded as people, and the business expanded to just incorporating other brands that do sustainable and ethical, zero waste, fair trade, small batch brands. And then we opened a store encapsulating all of that. And Harvey will speak more to the spirit of that Byas Leon has taken on.
The spirit. Yeah. It's funny, we were just saying earlier, like next year we'll actually make 10 years of Byas and Leon as a brand existing. So we started producing things in Haiti in 2012. So next year, 10-year anniversary of the brand just existing. And next year, January, we'll make 3 years of the shop. As you spoke of earlier, it's like 3 years. Like we all open around the same time. And the shop, we opened the shop, and then in just this beautifully organic way, the shop became kind of like a culture hub. where people come, and it's just like a safe space for people to come, connect, share. People have met at the shop and gone on to become lovers, creative partnerships, collaborators, people, friends, things like that. So spiritually, the shop is what we like to call like an Afro diaspora focused like cultural hub. And then in that capacity, we've created a number of like event series. Like we have art walks, we have art showcases. We had an environmentalist sustainability curriculum at some point.
Yeah, jazz night.
We had jazz night.
Wine.
Right,
You know, that's the important part. Yeah,
jazz night, but with alcohol. Yeah, and that we shout to Happy Cork.
Yep.
We collaborated with them. That was like our first event at the shop.
And it was fantastic.
Ever. And we recently took on an intern from a high school in Bed-Stuy. So it's just paying it forward, and it's just
teaching and learning.
Yeah, learning. So yeah, that's where we're at.
Word. I feel like the journey to this present moment is always windy and long and extremely personal, and oftentimes super unexpected. I didn't expect to, from building this community with SLAP, then want to open a culture center. But the importance of doing so kind of just came to fruition 3-4 years ago, in interacting with people, that we could do so much more if we just had our own space, if we didn't have to negotiate time and negotiate rates and negotiate, just let us do this here, this way, that way, because we always end up showing up in places and making ourselves fit into where we're at, as opposed to just wherever we go being open-armed and in reception to who we are and how we are in our truest and like greatest form. So the need for space, the need for autonomy within space, I feel like got us to where we are right now. And that journey there again is super windy, and often unexpected. When was the moment that you knew you had to dive a little bit deeper and get your name on a lease and open a space and have room?
Oh, no, you started it off, son. You're taking lead.
I need a moment to think. I need a moment to
Okay. I could try. So I'm a yogi as well.
Oh.
And we had Byas Leon, and we were talking about opening a physical space. So I used to go to Stacked Yoga on Tompkins, like right by Peace and Riot. And I saw our place that is now Byas Leon for lease. And we were already talking about getting a space. I looked at a couple of spots, trying to get a lay of the land. But this one just kind of spoke to us. So even though the landlord was not responsive, hunted him down, and we ended up getting it and opening the store like 2 or 3 months later.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, for us, I don't know if there was like a particular like eureka moment for us, like aha, we need a space. It happened gradually, like, because Rony and I, as Byas Leon, as a shout to independent like clothing designers or clothing brand, because Rony and I played the pop-up game for many years. Like we would every time we would trunk shows, like we would pay, we would get the clothing done in Haiti, like one or both of us would fly to Haiti, stay a week, work with the guys, then ship it all back, fly back, and then we would have to rent the venue to like make the premiere of the collection. So we would do that. Then after that, after the premiere event, then we'd have to play the trunk show and play the thing. And I said shout to people who are engaged in that, because it's brutal. It's brutal, and it can be very demoralizing. You know what I mean? Where it's like, because the amount of energy it takes just to lug your stuff from wherever you live or wherever your stock is, and then you set up, and then you're there for hours, and depending on how it's set up, you may not get any sales. So you're losing a lot of money, and you're losing a lot of time and energy. So over time,
tolerance for
that diminished.
And
it was kind of like, okay, like,
let's get a space.
We need a space.
We need to work smarter.
You know what I mean? It's like if we're gonna devote all this energy to getting the brand out, we need a space. And not to mention, as we grew as people, our values grew. So it became more important. Okay, we're ethically kind of getting things hand cut and sewn in Haiti, and that's cool. But there's a whole environmentalist aspect of fashion that we need to tap into in the form of fair trade brands, zero waste brands, vintage, handcrafted, small production companies. So it's like, all right, so if we're gonna get into all that, we need a roof.
Yeah.
Word. How about yourself, Paris?
So I was always organizing events in Brooklyn that were like centered around like poetry and music. And I met my business partner at a yoga teacher training, and Alicia. Hey, boo.
Shout out to business partners.
Yeah, she's in Maryland right now. But yeah, so we were in yoga teacher training. We were like one of the only black women in the training, and she shows me, one day she's like, hey, we should open up a yoga studio. And I was like, yeah, girl, you know, I'm busy. We could do pop-ups, you know. And she was like, oh, okay. The next week she came, and she had like a vision board. And it was on like a Pinterest vision board. And she was like, we should really open a yoga studio. And she showed me the vision. And then something in my heart, my spirit was like, a yes, right? And I was like, well, it has to be a space for creatives. Also has to be a space for young people, because I'm an educator as well, so I wanted a space for young people. She's like, yes, I'm here for that. Like, we can do it. And then from there, we were like, okay, we're going to do it in a year. We're going to be in Bed-Stuy. And then we graduated from yoga teacher training in December of 2018. I'm originally from Minneapolis, so I went out to Minneapolis. I did my first class there. All my friends came, and then she's like, let's do a class in New York. So we did a class in Dumbo in January, and we were looking at, like, just kind of feeling things out. Like, it was like a vision, so we were just looking at places in, like, Crown Heights, Bed-Stuy, where, like, we lived, where I lived. And so anyway, we do the class. All of our friends come to the class. It's a beautiful class. And the lady who was there, she's like, hey, do you want to sublease the space? And I was like, and have a yoga studio here? And we was like, yeah. So then 2 weeks later, we opened up what we call BK Yoga Club now. And then a few months after that, we transitioned into our own space, which was like right across the street. And then COVID hit in 2020, and then we paused, right? We, in June of 2020, we stopped leasing that spot because of COVID. And then we just kind of like prayed on it and just sat with it, and was like, you know what? Our vision exists beyond the 4 walls. So if we're just supposed to be a digital brand, like, and that's how we're supposed to move, cool, right? And then to make a long story short, I saw the place in Bed-Stuy, went to visit it, and it really kind of spoke to me, spoke to us. And then we're like, okay, but there's like, it was an ice cream shop before. So we're like, okay, we always love coffee. We love like community, what coffee shops do. We always wanted that. And then we were like, okay, so we're going to also be coffee shop, right? We're like, yeah, we're going to be a coffee shop too. And then we're like, but it was crazy. Anyway, so we're like, yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to be a coffee shop too. We're like, yeah. So to make a very long story short, we started on Dekalb, which is the coffee shop. And then we just opened up another location. It's a shared space around the corner on Tompkins and Willoughby. That's where the yoga takes place. So we've been like building out the whole space since November of 2020, and then we opened up on Dekalb August of 2021. So it's still new. And then we opened up the yoga portion in November of 2021. So everything has been moving really fast.
Busy.
Yeah.
I love that. I feel like it's one, the universe. Just literally like you will go in one place that's a regular routine, and you saw a spot across the street, and you called, you got to make it happen. And you're pivoting and just making sure that you're holding fast to like this idea of the importance of space and having your own space that you can dictate. And even with myself, when I just randomly, because we were doing 3-4 events a month with SLAP, and I was looking for black coffee shops, I was looking for black restaurants, and then you're trying to, again, negotiate staff, negotiate time, negotiate cost, and like, I'd rather be doing it with my people than other people, but also it's a lot of energy that's going into all of this. So I was randomly, instead of Googling coffee shops, I was looking up leases and like, so I'm looking for leases now. And it could have been anything. I was looking at it could have been a brownstone. It could have, it could have just been space, and we would have adapted to what was needed there. But I think I only looked at 2 spaces, and this was the second spot that we looked at, and it was almost perfect to like, this is what we need. It's a beautiful storefront and open, welcoming space, but then there's like lots of underground space for us to just kind of like be and not have to worry about, the things that we potentially have to worry about having space for. And a lot of that backstory doesn't get told, let alone told. We don't even recognize it a lot. We don't recognize the 10 years in the game that we've been. You don't recognize the amount of phone calls and energy that went into like locking down a space that you lose 3 months later. Like there's so much that goes into it that at the end of the day, it has to come down to purpose. It has to come down to the universe is keeping this in alignment for me to the point that I'm able to get it done. So that being said, what are those moments and things that keep you going and keep you knowing that this is the right thing, this is the direction you're supposed to go in, and doesn't allow that fear or uncertainty from keeping you from moving forward?
So for me, I would say my spiritual faith. I'm really big on prayer, and so just continually praying about things, bringing it to God, and just like letting go of control. So when 2020 hit, I was like, oh, we're not this cool yoga studio anymore. Like, I had to like look like, is my identity attached to like having a space, or like, who am I without all of this, right? Because things started popping off fairly quickly. And it was like, oh, I'm popping, what I'm saying? So it's like, what am I without? Just like really, like, what are you without these spaces, right? And so what is the vision? How does the vision live beyond the space, right? And then also just being rooted in like my business partner, we started the business with like $200 something. Like, it wasn't like we had like mad fund. You know what I'm saying? I know.
I'm like, that budget tight.
I know. And like, we both were working our full-time jobs. I was a college advisor. She was, she's marketing. So we're both working, just, putting money towards the business, and then it continued to grow. But it was just like, when it happened, it was like okay, let's just pray about this. Like, let's see where God's taking us. And I don't have no idea what's happening, right? So it was just like, let go of control. And then when that happened, there was like a peace, even in the uncertainty. It was like, it's going to be whatever it is. If it ain't this, then whatever was supposed to be that led up to this point, I'm grateful, right?
Yeah.
And then when things just kind of started like coming towards us, and like opportunities and collaborations, and then just people continually like us focusing on, again, purpose and impact and like serving versus it being like about the business. That's kind of when we shifted. Like, we were like, okay, well, obviously everything's a shit right now, so like, how can we serve from a space of like giving, and like, what can we contribute to like what's happening in the world right now with Black people particularly. Like, it's really going down, so like putting our energy towards that, and then just saying like, okay, well, maybe we're just doing digital, and I'll live here and we can just figure that out. And then when this space came, I like sat with it, prayed on it, we did collectively, and we were like, yeah, this feels right. So that's all the questions, I think. Did I answer everything? So I think it's really about being rooted and not allowing anything of these things to like my identity be rooted in it, right? So just knowing that regardless of how it looks, the purpose, if I'm writing a poem, if I'm teaching a yoga class, it just comes out through these various mediums.
That makes a lot of sense for sure. How about you?
You start
you
this
look like
time.
you wanna answer.
Yeah, I mean,
There you go. No, please.
yeah, please, brother,
please.
come on.
Sit down.
I would say for myself, in terms of business, I'm aggressive by nature. So like we had a discussion, we were talking about this maybe 2 days ago, and we were just talking about stepping in the door with 2 feet. Like, yes, having a plan B is important and nice, but sometimes you have to just step into whatever you're doing like you don't have one. You may have one, but step like you don't. Because sometimes when you half-step certain things, you end up getting hit by the door, and that serves nobody. So, like, I think for us, we try to do that in terms of, like, the business, where we step into any space that we get into or any new product that we try to sell with both of our feet, with the best intentions, with all of our heart. And whatever happens, we can deal with it, you know, because we walked into it being ourselves, or at least for me.
Right. You half stepping or you hopping in for some feet?
I drag them.
I don't want to be here so bad. I just hate it here.
No, you love it here.
I do. I do. I mean, I'm trying to, like, we've talked so much, and I'm like, what was the question again? But I believe it was like, how do we stay kind of rooted in our purpose?
Yeah.
Or something like that. For me, it brings me insane, like, incredible joy to see the connections that happen at the shop. So, like, people literally, like, meet at the shop and then go on to create great works together. Or we're friends on Instagram, and then, like, let's say I'm cool with you, and then I'm cool with somebody else. And then y'all, I remember one time introducing y'all at the shop. Maybe randomly 2 months later, I'm following you and you brunching with such and such. Or y'all collaborating. So it just brings me so much joy. Like, seeing that happen in real time. Just like, wow. So, whoa. Like, we're really, like, we're doing the Lord's work of just, like, you know what I mean? It really feels that way to me. It feels like, you know, and this is what, for me personally, allows us to get through those tough times where me and Ronnie don't know how we're going to make payroll, where we don't know how we're going to make rent because it's just been a slow week. Like, today was super slow. Boy, you know what I mean? But I'm trying to tell you, our small team, right? You know, our small team, like, how are we going to take care of everybody? Yeah. So when we have those moments, or where we take a loss, let's say we invested in something, and then it just blows up, and it just didn't pan out. You know what I mean? What keeps me like grounded is that no, like, I have literally seen in real time the joy and creation and power and love that has sprung from what me and Ronnie doing. So I know that this is what we're supposed to do. We don't have all the metrics quite figured out, but I know for a fact that keeps me like, keep at it.
Yeah, I resonate with all of that. With both of you, both parties have said, all three of you guys. Especially during the pandemic, it was like, I was mad I had space and a rent that I had to pay and all that other stuff. And it's like I had to transition from this idea that, like, the space was the business and, like, the space is the blessing. The space is space to have and grow. So having to pivot potentially some of that model, but figure out how to still utilize that space and still be operating from abundance, as opposed to this idea of scarcity and, oh, I got rent to pay. But, like, you got rent to pay because you have space to use and to take up and to be in. So
say it again.
Say it again.
Space to take up.
I need that affirmation. I'm gonna put that one.
Facts. And yeah, it challenged us to. We were so with Slap and with Remy, and, like, we came together from being in these creative shared spaces, and, like, that's the model, that's the business. And it's like, but how do you still root yourself in the purpose, and how do you make sure that doesn't fizzle out and die because of whatever the circumstances are? So you go online, you figure out ways to just like kind of work the system to make sure that we're still doing what that purpose is of being that representation, providing, you know, that safe space and encouragement to be creative and to find something to root yourself in. So again, thank you guys. Appreciate
Thank you.
you for having the fortitude to be years in, to be almost decades into this work, and knowing that the vision is evolving and there's no final answer to it. You just kind of have to move with where you're moved to, and really be ready for the callings, and to put those asks out as prayers, as just consulting with the community, and really having your ear to the pulse, and being able to move from there, and not being like tied to some image that you have of yourself, like you mentioned, that personal identity, and being able to separate the two, but find a really beautiful way to marry the two as well. We are definitely we are wrapping. You all are our last segment, so I just wanted to offer some space for you all to close us out. Say anything you might want to say about your businesses, your endeavors, how we can support you, how you support us, and just make sure that this synergy leaves this room and carries into the community.
No. This is gonna be short and sweet.
Yeah.
404 Tompkins Avenue. We're always here. We have great conversations. We usually offer tequila. So, you know, we are here to indulge.
704 Dekalb Avenue. Come have coffee with us, tea, do some yoga, and you can follow us on Instagram at BK Yoga Club and at on Dekalb BK. And just, I'm happy to be here. Awesome. So thanks for the work that you're doing, and like, you know, thanks for contacting me and being like, hey.
Of course.
Of
course. We keep our eyes open, and again, the energy that you give off and give to the community it's a communal effort, truly. Like, you all pouring into the community allow someone to show up to our spaces, you know, in a better mind frame and in a better just like spiritual space. So we all are necessary and needed, and being in conversation. I've also found during the pandemic is that next step to what we need to be doing. As much as we're gathering the community and creating space for folks to connect and have a life outside of us, like, we need to continue to collaborate and combine our energies and our forces, and make sure that we are going beyond. So thank you.
Much stronger together, yeah.
For sure.
What's your Instagram?
Oh,
Byas Leon.
At BYAS Leon. Put an @ in front of that. That's Instagram.
There you go.
Yeah.
Again, we have Byas and Leon. We have BK Yoga Club and on Dekalb BK. I'm Bree from SLAP.
Shout to Bree.
Since we're talking about business with purpose,
Appreciate y'all.
Also Remy Rouge Culture Center. Thank you.
Yes.
Sure.
Thank you.
Pleasure was ours.
Have a good one, y'all.
Thank you.
Peace.
Peace.